You know, in a world that rewards noise, it's easy to believe that the loudest voice wins. That the more we announce our goals, the closer we get to them. But here's a quiet truth that often gets overlooked. Real power doesn't shout. It whispers. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone post their grand plans online only to watch those plans fade into silence? How often have we ourselves spoken of dreams with passion, but let them drift because the talking gave us just enough dopamine to feel like we'd already begun? That's the illusion of progress. When we talk too much about our goals, we get applause too early and our brain mistakes it for accomplishment. Meanwhile, the real winners are often out of sight, quietly putting in the reps. No spotlight, no audience, just work. Take a look at nature. Bamboo spends years growing roots underground before it ever breaks the surface. But once it does, it shoots up feet in weeks. Success is like that. It grows where no one can see, and then one day, it's undeniable. So if you're building something, remember this: you don't have to prove anything to anyone right now. Let your silence be your strategy. Let your consistency be your confidence. Because the most powerful work you'll ever do will probably go unnoticed until it doesn't. And when that day comes, you won't need to say a word. Let's get real for a second. We live in an age where sharing has become second nature. The moment we think of a new idea or decide on a goal, the instinct is to post about it. I'm starting a business. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm writing a book. The likes roll in. People cheer us on. And for a brief moment, it feels like we've already accomplished something. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Talking about the journey isn't the same as taking the journey. Every time we announce our plans too early, we create the illusion of progress. The applause we receive tricks the brain into thinking we're already halfway there. It satisfies our need for validation before we've earned it. But when the high fades and it's time to actually do the work, we're left with nothing but a to-do list and a dopamine crash. So what's the alternative? Commit quietly. Build in silence. Let your results make the noise. When you stop broadcasting your goals, something powerful happens. You stop performing and you start creating. You begin doing the work for yourself, not for attention, not for praise, not for proof, just the work. Day in, day out. And that's where real transformation begins. Let me tell you something that sounds boring, but is secretly magical. Progress lives in the mundane, in the tiny, almost invisible moments when you show up, even when you don't feel like it. That's where you become who you're trying to be. It's waking up 30 minutes early to read. It's doing 10 push-ups, even when you're tired. It's writing a single paragraph, even when you don't know what to say. Most people wait for motivation to strike. But the truth? Motivation is a luxury. Discipline is the real engine. Let's break it down with something simple, but mind-blowing. Say you devote just 1 hour a day to your goal. Not 8 hours, not a dramatic life overhaul. Just one focused, consistent hour every day. What do you get? Over 365 hours a year. That's the equivalent of over 9 full-time work weeks. Think about that. That's enough time to learn a language, get in the best shape of your life, build a side business, write a book, deepen your craft, whatever matters to you. But what do most people do with that 1 hour? They scroll, they binge, they talk about what they plan to do. They chase the illusion of productivity instead of the discipline of progress. Here's something to think about. What's one area of your life that would completely change with 350 hours of intentional effort? Imagine if your future self could thank you for just showing up silently, consistently for 1 hour a day. Of course, it's not sexy. There are no big announcements, no shiny launches, no likes, no hearts, no followers cheering you on. But that's the point. Success is often a quiet, lonely process. It happens in quiet mornings and tired evenings, in rooms where no one is watching, in notebooks no one sees, in the 100th rep no one claps for. In the email drafts and deleted attempts and awkward first tries. And yet, that's where greatness is born. The artists we admire, the leaders we quote, the innovators we follow, they didn't talk their way to success. They showed up when no one was watching. They put in the hours when it didn't feel good. They stayed in the dark long enough to bring something brilliant into the light. So if you're in that quiet phase, if you're building behind the scenes, staying consistent, while no one notices you're doing it right, protect that space. Guard that 1 hour. Replace the urge to announce with the habit of showing up. Because when the results come, and they will, you won't have to explain a thing. Your life will speak for itself. And that's the most powerful kind of success there is. Let's talk about energy. Not the hype kind of energy, not the caffeine-fueled rush. I'm talking about the deeper energy, your attention, your time, your emotional reserves. That quiet reservoir you pull from when you're trying to grow, create, or rebuild something real in your life. And here's the truth. Every time you talk about what you're going to do, every time you try to prove yourself to others, you're leaking that energy. You're trading power for comfort. Why? Because talking is easy. It gives a temporary sense of relief. You say, I'm working on something big, and people nod, applaud, admire. It feels good. It calms the discomfort of not being there yet. But here's the problem. That comfort comes at a cost. You spend energy justifying instead of building. You seek validation instead of momentum. You perform instead of produce. And growth doesn't come from performance. Growth comes from solitude, from sweat, from the silent hours where you confront your doubts and keep going anyway. That's why protecting your energy isn't just about saying no to distractions. It's also about saying no to the urge to prove yourself. Because the more you try to explain, defend, or convince others of your path, the less time and energy you have to actually walk it. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to win approval. You don't need to be understood at every turn. You don't need to respond to the doubters or put on a show for the audience. You need to focus. Let me say that again. You need focus, not validation. Think of the most powerful people you know. Not the loudest, but the most grounded. The ones who move with quiet confidence. They're not explaining themselves. They're not trying to win you over. They're just doing the work. And slowly, inevitably, you see the results. Because here's what's often overlooked. Results speak louder than promises. A finished book is louder than a tweet about writing one. A strong, healthy body is louder than a dozen diet posts. A thriving business is louder than the vision board on your wall. And results take time. They take patience. They take energy, and you can't afford to waste that energy chasing applause before the real work is done. So protect it. Guard your inner world like it's sacred. Because it is. You see, in a performance-driven world, choosing not to perform is a radical act. And it's hard, especially when everyone else seems to be shouting about what they're doing, where they're going, how fast they're growing. But here's a quiet reminder. Comparison is noise. Proving yourself is noise. Seeking approval is noise. Progress? Progress is silence. Progress is the 5 a.m. alarm. Progress is the weekend sacrifice. Progress is turning down the party, turning off the phone, and tuning into your purpose. So ask yourself this: what would change if you stopped trying to prove yourself and just trusted yourself instead? If you channeled every ounce of energy into creating, not convincing? If you let your work talk for you? Imagine the power of that. Imagine showing up a year from now not with a folder full of plans, but with actual results. With something finished, something solid, something real. That's the moment when you realize you didn't need to prove anything after all. You just needed to keep going. And when that moment comes, you'll look back and be grateful not just for what you built, but for what you protected along the way. Because your energy is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely. Let's talk about silence. Not the awkward kind, not the absence of sound kind. I mean, the sacred kind. The kind of silence where things grow not loudly, not publicly, but deeply. Because here's what most people forget. Habits don't grow in the spotlight. They grow in the shadows. Every meaningful change you want to create, whether it's in your health, your work, your creativity, or your mindset, starts with small actions. Repeated, quietly, without an audience, without applause. Just you, and the choice to try again. And yet, in a world where everything is meant to be shared, where even your breakfast gets its moment on a screen, it's tempting to treat self-improvement the same way. To announce every new routine, to post every small win, to tell the world, look, I'm changing. But here's the thing. Sometimes, sharing too soon steals the momentum. It's like digging up a seed every day to see if it's growing. You end up doing more damage than good. When you tell everyone about your new goal too early, it can actually trick your brain. You get praise before you've earned it. And that praise, it feels like progress. But it's not. It's a performance. There's real wisdom in keeping things close to your chest. Not out of fear, not out of secrecy, but out of respect for the process, for the fragility of beginnings, and for the part of you that's still figuring things out. Because something powerful happens when you make progress privately. You start to build self-trust. You begin to notice the days you showed up when it was hard. You feel the quiet pride that comes from sticking to something without needing external validation. You shift your identity not based on what others say about you, but on what you know to be true. And that shift? That's where the transformation begins. Think about it. How do you learn to trust a friend? Not because they make grand speeches or big promises, but because they show up again and again, without making it a big deal. Self-trust is no different. You earn it in the repetition, in the silence, in the invisible victories. And over time, those habits, the ones no one saw, the ones you built in the background, they start to shape you. Quietly, deeply, permanently. They become who you are, not just what you do. And when that happens, you don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to announce anything. People will feel it. In your presence, in your discipline, in your results. That's why the silence matters. Because in silence, you're not performing, you're transforming. So if you're in a season right now where you're working on yourself in private, if you're not sharing every step, every win, every milestone, you're doing it right. That doesn't make it easy. In fact, it can feel lonely. There's no feedback loop, no one clapping, no one saying, keep going. But here's your reminder. You don't need applause to make progress. You just need to keep showing up, day after day, with love, with patience, with the quiet courage to keep choosing the version of you that you're becoming. This is where the real work happens. And this is where real confidence is born, not from being seen, but from being true. So stay with it. Trust the quiet. Trust the rhythm of repetition. Protect the sacredness of your growth. Because one day, the results will speak volumes. And you won't need to say a word. Let's be honest, in parts of the journey, you just have to walk alone. Not because no one cares, not because you're not worthy of support, but because some struggles are sacred. They're not meant to be broadcast. They're meant to refine you from the inside out. We don't talk about this enough. Everyone loves a comeback story, but few talk about the silence between the fall and the rise. That long stretch of invisible struggle where you're not sure if you're healing or just surviving, where no one's cheering and the only voice you hear is your own. But that's where real strength is forged. Not in the easy wins, not in the comfortable zones, but in the days when it hurts. The days when it would be easier to quit, to blame, to numb out. The days when you keep going anyway. That's how resilience is born. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that struggle is something to avoid. That pain is a detour. That hardship means you've messed up. But what if it's the opposite? What if struggle isn't a detour, but the path itself? Think of a tree. The deeper its roots grow, the more storms it can survive. But those roots only deepen when the soil resists. No resistance, no depth. Same goes for us. Without pressure, we never discover what we're really made of. Without friction, we don't develop the muscle. Without being stretched, we never expand. And yet, most of us fear the dark seasons. We want shortcuts, comfort, quick answers. But there's a kind of wisdom that only pain can teach. A clarity that only comes when you sit with the struggle long enough to learn from it. And here's the thing. Some of the most important lessons in your life will arrive without an audience. No camera, no quote, just you, wrestling with yourself, choosing to grow instead of give up. It's in those moments when everything in you wants to run that you discover the power of staying. Staying in discomfort, staying in process, staying in truth, and not using the struggle as an excuse but as fuel. That's the turning point. When the challenge stops being a reason to quit and becomes the very reason you rise. Now, don't get me wrong, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on people when needed. But there are also moments when growth requires solitude. Not isolation, but stillness. A quiet space where no one can walk the path for you. It's in that space that you begin to change not just externally, but internally. You become someone who doesn't just talk about strength, but embodies it. And that strength, it's not loud, it's not flashy, it's not always visible, but it's real. So if you're facing something hard right now, something no one else quite understands, this is your reminder. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're not lost. You're deepening. You're not alone. You're simply in the part of the story that requires silence. And when you come out of this, you won't need to explain, because your presence will say it all. So don't waste your struggle. Don't numb it. Don't rush it. Use it. Let it shape you. Let it refine you. Let it teach you who you really are. Because on the other side of this chapter is a version of you that can handle so much more than you ever thought possible. Here's something we often forget in the age of instant updates and loud declarations. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to walk into every room and justify your goals. You don't have to narrate your journey, prove your worth, or convince others that you're making progress. Because if what you're doing is real, the results will speak. And the truth is, results have a louder voice than promises ever could. Think about it. When was the last time someone's plan impressed you more than their outcome? We remember the book that was finished, not the one someone said they were writing. We admire the person who quietly transformed their health, not the one who posted about joining the gym every week. We trust the leader who delivers under pressure, not the one who talks big and folds when it matters. That's not to diminish vision or excitement. Dreaming is beautiful. Hope matters. But there's something different, something powerful about people who don't need to advertise every move they make. They just move. And when the time is right, the results do all the talking. There's a quote I love: "Well done is better than well said." Benjamin Franklin said that. And it still holds true. In a world where everyone's talking, doing is rare, finishing is rare, quiet excellence, that's rare. But that's also what makes it magnetic. You see, when your head's down doing the work, you're not performing for applause. You're not looking sideways. You're not distracted by perception. You're focused on execution. And execution done consistently, quietly creates impact that can't be denied. Here's something to consider. The tallest trees in the forest didn't grow by announcing every inch of progress. They just grew silently, steadily, one ring at a time. Can you imagine if every time a tree added a leaf, it shouted, "Look at me, Of course not. That would be absurd. But we do that. We often rush to tell before we've built. We confuse visibility with value. But real value doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. So if you're building something right now, maybe it's slow, maybe it's unseen, maybe it's far from impressive by the world's standards. I want to tell you something. That's okay. Keep building. Because when the results arrive, you won't need to explain a thing. Your actions will speak for you. Your consistency will speak for you. Your peace will speak for you. And people won't ask what you said you would do. They'll look at your life and say, that person did it. No announcement required. No validation needed. Just quiet confidence and proof. So take the pressure off, trying to prove yourself with noise. Instead, double down on your craft, on your habits, on the process. Because here's the secret. The most powerful moves in life are made in silence. And the most unforgettable wins, they're the ones that surprise people not because they were loud, but because they were real. So let others talk. Let others chase attention. You chase mastery. And when the results come, and they will, you won't have to raise your voice. You'll simply smile and keep going. Because the results already said enough. So let's bring it all home. After everything we've explored, quiet commitment, private effort, silent struggle, and letting your results speak, there's one truth that keeps echoing. Quiet, relentless discipline will always outlast loud intentions. In a world that rewards noise, it's tempting to think that progress needs to be seen to be real. That if you're not posting about it, promoting it, or proving it, you must not be doing enough. But here's what the wise know. The most powerful transformations are invisible until they're undeniable. You don't need to shout. You don't need to convince. You don't need to prove. You just need to stay steady, stay grounded, stay devoted to your path even when it's quiet, even when no one is watching. Because something beautiful happens when you stop chasing applause and start honoring the process. You begin to find peace in the work itself. Not in the reaction it gets, not in the recognition it earns, but in the quiet satisfaction of showing up for yourself. And over time, the compound effect of that kind of effort is unstoppable. You become the person who doesn't just talk about change, you embody it. You stop chasing goals like trophies and start living them as a lifestyle. You stop waiting for validation because you've already built self-trust. You stop trying to be someone, and instead, you are someone. Someone who doesn't need applause to feel worthy. Someone whose character is louder than their words. Someone who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a thing because their presence already tells the story. And that, my friend, is real success. Not the kind that trends, not the kind that fades with the algorithm, but the kind that sticks, that grounds you. That becomes part of your identity. So as you step forward from here, whether you're chasing a goal, rebuilding from scratch, or simply learning to trust yourself again, remember this. You don't need to be seen to be significant. Your effort matters, even when it's unseen. Your growth counts, even when it's quiet. Your success is valid, even if it never trends. Because the truest success isn't about applause, it's about alignment. It's about living in such a way that who you are is the proof. Not what you say, not what you promise, but how you move, how you show up, how you carry yourself when no one's watching. So let the world chase trends. You chase truth. Let the world perform. You practice. Let the world shout. You build. Because one day, when the dust settles and the noise fades, what will remain is you. Not what you posted, not what you planned, but who you became in the quiet. And that version of you, that's the real victory.